So I'm joined by Marlynne Ferguson. Marlynne is the Manager for Operations in International Education. Welcome, Marlynne.
Thank you, Shelley. Nice to be here with you today.
So this is a special conversation because we're going to be talking about the international students who've been in a position where they can actually come to Canada during this global pandemic, because we have had some students who've been able to come. So I thought I'd ask you some questions around that. And the first question, Marlynne, is which international students can actually come to Canada to study remotely from Canada? Who are these students?
So only students with an approved study permit, which we often refer to as a visa, can travel to Canada for study. But last summer, with the production of COVID across our universe, the IRCC actually created a new policy, which was very responsive, and it allows students to study remotely. And they have a new two-phase process for approving a study permit. And students who have a phase 1 approval, which is an approval in principle, can begin their studies remotely. And that time actually can count towards their postgraduate work permit. And in fact, even students who have only just submitted their application to IRCC are eligible for that accumulation of time and can begin their studies.
Okay, good. So it is really only those students who can come into the Canadian border who have a full study permit who can be here.
That's correct. They need to have that final approved visa before actually traveling to Canada.
Okay. So how does the college, how do you and your team get involved with international students who have these full study permits and they want to come to Canada? So what is the involvement that you and your team have?
Well, back in the summer, our president signed an agreement with the province in terms of our COVID readiness plan. And so we set out a list of things that we would do to support students coming to St. Lawrence College and how we would manage and track those students who were newly arriving to Canada. So one of the key things that we did was we started to better utilize an application for student communication that we'd already been using for about 3 to 4 years, and it's called the iSent app. And they have included all the information that is in the Arrive CAN application that the federal government uses for tracking. And it includes all the details around things like creating your self-quarantine plan. So right from the beginning, when a student gets an LOA from St. Lawrence College, they're now receiving a letter of acceptance that has a QR code for them to download this application through iSent. And it walks them through the process step by step of how to plan their travel to Canada, which includes the development of their self-quarantine plan, and also it requires them to have their COVID test in their home country within 72 hours of their travel to Canada.
Right.
Once the students get here, we're actually tracking on a daily basis. So they get one reminder first thing in the morning. Okay, it's 10 a.m.
That's first thing.
Yes. And then if they haven't responded by 3 p.m., they get another reminder from us. And along with that, we're also prompting with emails at key dates. So the day the student arrives, we're welcoming them to Canada. 3 days in, we're checking in to make sure that everything's going okay. They don't need any additional supports. 6 days in, we're reminding them that they need to get another COVID test. And we're talking to them about how they go about that process. And we're trying to be very flexible because from the time that we started doing this last fall, the government regulations have changed multiple times. So we're always having to update information for students as we move along.
Great. So from the point at which a student decides to come to Canada, they are basically in touch with us, with St. Lawrence College, so that we can approve their quarantine plan. And then from the moment that they land at the airport in Canada, we're laying hands on them, we're communicating with them. And I think it sounds, Marlynne, like by the time the students actually finish their 14-day quarantine period, which is going to be at a hotel or a motel situation, they will have had at least 2 COVID tests, one before they left their home country and then one just as they were kind of finishing their quarantine period. Is that right?
Well, it's actually 3 now because of the changes in the federal regulations. So students are now being tested upon their arrival, and they're participating in that mandatory 3-day hotel stay just like everyone else. But after their 3 days, they're able to continue in another hotel. We are pushing students to remain in government-approved hotel situations. In the fall, we are allowing private arrangements, but we've changed that due to some of the federal changes around the quarantine plans.
Right. Well, Marlynne, thank you so much for talking with me today. I mean, it sounds like you and your team is this mainly helping with this are your international student advisors, I guess. And so, it sounds like international students more so than ever are really, we're really making that contact with them, and we're having to, as a college, I guess we really committed to making that contact from the moment at which they decide that they actually can come to Canada, right up until they clear their quarantine and then are able to stay in Canada for their studies.
That's right, Shelley, and we're building in touch points to be able to offer students an opportunity to ask questions. So we have pre-departure sessions, so they can sign up for the app, they can test it out, and then we host sessions where if they need help with their plan, need to ask questions about how going about to prepare it, we can have that back and forth with them to make sure that they're as ready and as safe as possible in terms of making their travel to Canada.
Right. Oh, it's great that you're laying the hands on them and you're reaching out to them. And I'm sure that for the students, that communication piece and that support from your team is going to be key to helping them through what is a difficult transition from their home country to Canada. But at least, as I say, you're getting to know them a little bit through this process that we've had to do just to get them to Canada.
Definitely. We're seeing very familiar names, and that's a plus because we're used to seeing familiar names on campus. So it's nice that we're building in something that helps us do that virtually.
Okay, Marlynne. Well, thank you very much. Nice to see you.
You too. Bye, Shelley.
Take care. Bye.